So we're 3 weeks into our house arrest, and geez, it feels like our lives are upside down. Well, this week they made some announcements that it looks like the curve is flattening in places, especially the worst places like New York. But we're not out of the woods yet, but I think we're starting to get a little bit of handle on this. And maybe we're starting to get a little bit more normal. Well, 2 TwinTroller owners have contacted me. One by the name of John, and he told me about how he had trouble with the carburetor on his Honda for his TwinTroller. And he went through quite a bit of work to kind of make that better. And let me show you what he did. I also was contacted by Ron, another owner, and he wanted to know some information about extending the handle on my Honda. So let's go over some of those issues. Follow me.
In the description below this video, there are links to most of the items used in many of my videos. They are there so you can locate them in case you are interested.
Hi, my name's Gerry, and I'm a TwinTroller boat owner. John, another TwinTroller owner, contacted me about his Honda motor. He was having trouble with his carburetor. Took it to a dealer. They looked at it, they did some things, and eventually he figured out what it was and how to fix it, and he did that himself. And see what he did.
John from Missouri wrote, "Earlier this year I unwinterized and got my boat motor ready for the year. All is well, and then it started choking itself out. During the warm-up period it was fine, but then it would choke itself out. Any thoughts? The motor is still under warranty, but the Honda marine dealers around the Ozark Lakes seem to not have very good reviews online. Thanks in advance for any help, John." I wrote back, "Another Honda owner had a problem with his Honda and took a chance by ordering a new carburetor and installing it himself. That worked for him in a similar situation to yours. He said it was cheaper than the cost of a dealer working on the motor, and that worked for him. Are you sure it is choking itself out? What are the symptoms to conclude that? There are many other things that could cause a similar problem. Is the fuel old or possibly left over from last year? Is there water in the gas? I only use non-ethanol fuel myself. Is the crankcase oil up to the correct level? Is it truly running too rich, so that you can pull the plug when that is going on to see if it is wet, so you can confirm that? It could have problems with the spark after it heats up, or a bad coil, or spark plug, etc. Do you know how to check for a good spark? Are you sure there is not something blocking the engine from cooling, because it is an air-cooled engine? Mice building a nest in the engine compartment would cause major problems when it gets warmed up. Start with those questions first. Gerry." John writes back, "Yes, I went back to the manual to make sure. As for your previous email questions, when I winterized, no fuel was left in the tank. I sprayed fogging oil as per the manual. When I unwinterized, I dumped out all the old oil, put in fresh oil, including the gear oil, and replaced the spark plug with the correct spacing or gap. There were no mice or wasps under the engine cover. If you could see my motor, you would think it came straight out of the box. It seems I'll have to do the drive of shame to the Honda Marina. Thanks for your help, John." I replied to John, "I will be curious of what they find." Gerry, A little while later, John writes back, "By the way, I'm still waiting on the verdict of why my Honda Outboard choked up this season. This mom and pop Honda authorized shop I took it to had it since November 23rd. I'll let you know what's wrong with it once it's repaired. John." A little while later, John writes again, "Gerry, I just got the verdict. The gas cap was not venting properly. Nothing visually wrong with it. The switch worked, but the cap wasn't venting. This caused a secondary problem with the carburetor in that something was crushed due to the pressure of not venting. Strange," wrote John. I wrote back to John, "Well, that was a simple fix. Did they say what was crushed? The only thing I can think of is a fuel line. That is the only thing soft enough to collapse in the fuel system in the carb. Either way, you are ready to go fishing. Just chop a hole in the lake big enough to launch the TwinTroller, and you are there." John later writes back, "Gerry, not sure what was crushed. This was over the phone, and I didn't want to get into the details. In this situation, I prefer to get the details face to face. That way, I can have them point out where the problem was. They ordered the parts, so I'm still waiting before I get my motor back. Not sure why it's taking so long. I'll send you the final details when I get them." Eventually, John wrote back, "Gerry, I picked up my outboard this morning. I mentioned that my outboard would choke out, not idle or start with the clutch in the start position. My 2018 fishing season was fine, but my 2019 fishing season on the big lakes came to a halt. Two issues that the certified Honda mechanic identified. The main issue was that the gas cap stopped venting properly. That was my main problem. Second was that the carburetor adjust screw was not set correctly at the factory. Here comes the geeky part. There's a limiter pin associated with the adjust screw once it is set at the factory for emission purposes. Because he identified that the adjust screw was incorrect, he had to break the limiter pin, set the adjustment screw to the proper factory settings of 3 turns instead of 1.5, and install the new limiter pin. Sounds like a lot of hoopla to me. When the weather returns, I'll be on the water to observe any difference." And later, John replied to me that his motor is now working fine. Good for you, John.
Ron also contacted me, asked me if I could give him some information and maybe do a little video about my throttle extension for my Honda, what it is, where I got it from, how I use it, and if I like it. So let me show you that information.
Ron, I'm not really sure why I kept this all these years, but a number of people have asked this question, so I'm glad I did. This is a Helmsmate trolling motor extension handle, and it adjusts from 18 to 24 inches. If you go to the description underneath this video, or any of my more recent videos, you will see a description of all the items I generally use in all of my videos with links. This Helmsmate trolling motor extension handle is there with a link where you can buy one. If you look closely to the left of that knob, you can see the original handle of the Honda inside there. This extension fits over the top. It even comes with a little piece of material that you can slide in there with it to make up for some thickness and make it fit better on the original handle. I didn't have to use all of what they gave me, but I did use some. Once you have this completely pushed onto the original handle, you just turn that knob and that tightens it down so it squeezes the original handle tightly and it doesn't fall off. When you twist the extension handle, it twists the original handle with it and raises or lowers the RPMs on the motor. And that's how this all works. On the bottom of the extension tube, you can see 3 holes. One has a silver button in it. You can push that button in and adjust that up and down the length in each of those holes to make it from 18 to 24 inches. And I keep it at the full length. That's what works for me. You are looking at the extension handle from overhead, and you can see the little green marks. I put those on there. They originally came with more subdued coloring, and I wanted to see where I needed to line things up in order to start the Honda by having those marks the same color, that when they're lined up it was easy to see. You don't have to do that. That's just what I did. This is an important safety issue to me. I don't ever start that motor without wearing the lanyard to the kill switch around my wrist. And with the extension, it didn't fit, so I had to add to it. I bought another piece of that red coiled cord on eBay for $1 or $2 and cut off the clips that were on the end because they didn't fit the Honda anyway, and attached them together, as you can see here. That way I always have it around my wrist when I start that motor. This is what the extension handle looks like when it's installed. It's standing in the upright position, so you can see how much bigger it is than the original arm.
I really hope we're all doing okay. There's some measures you need to take. Continue to do your social distancing, washing your hands. In the county I live in, I'm now required to mask whenever I'm outside my house, like to a store or something like that. Naturally, I still have to do everything else too. But whether you have to wear this or not where you are, probably not a bad idea if you go out in public. Stay safe, everybody. Bye now.